because in other organizations like CONVOCS or Red Cross or those uni-wide organizations, they have their own base or organizations in the different colleges like Red Cross Architecture, Red Cross Accountancy, and then they have a central Red Cross. So it's gonna be like that, what you mentioned before about the different colleges.
No, we don't have enough people for that. I just really want a representative from each college, an ISEC representative from each college, to spread the word or be an ambassador of ISEC. We can't really afford, people-wise, to have a chapter in each college, and I think it's gonna be because the main role of that representative will just be to recruit and to invite people to ISEC events. So we don't need a whole chapter for that. We just need at least one person in each college doing that.
So you mentioned that part of your time, it's integrated in your timeline and in your plans, that you want your local community to have your own local community product portfolio. So, and you mentioned in your timeline that you want to be able to start building and finalizing it around June to July. However, most of your events and your P-boxes, you have timeline them, not just your P-boxes, but also your Rec Meet, your other PR events. You have timeline them to be also around June or July. So how do you think could we mitigate the possible problem of not being able to build your local portfolio in time for this? And how do you want your salespeople to be integrated in the planning of these events so that these will be ensured so that the marketability will be ensured?
Okay. Oh wait, I have time.
Can you repeat concise?
Okay, so how are you going to mitigate the problem of the local committee product portfolio not making it in time for your events? And at the same time, how do you want your salespeople to be integrated in the planning of these events to ensure marketability?
Okay. Basically for the LCP not being done on time, it's only going to be because we're chasing recruitment, right? I think we can still sell recruitment as a single product anyway. We don't have to wait for the other products to be finalized before we sell recruitment or get sponsorships for that. Same goes for ACAMP since it's also going to be in the early part of the term. And for the salespeople being involved in the LCPP, we can have the current ER department in on the planning, and then when we recruit more and we allocate them, they can also contribute. The LCPP isn't going to be like set in stone. We can still add to it and then find sponsors for it throughout the term.
First of all, congratulations for finishing your you mentioned in your plans that you wanted basically an exchange culture, right? That's the one big thing focus areas. And one of your plans is to put more people in the exchange departments, especially during the first part. My question is, I think one of the big issues to say is that people outside those exchange departments, they don't feel accountable to OJEX and ISEX, mostly because of that label. I'm an exchanger, so I do exchange. I'm a com person, I don't do exchange. And dahil doon, parang nagkakaroon ng difference in how people think. Like for example, ownership of exchange, ownership of ISEX always falls down to just OJEXers and ISEXers. So that's part of your culture already. How do you plan to maybe change that? Like as you mentioned also in your plan, synergy. You said that all the functions are important and they play different roles. But then you're going to put more people in exchange. Then making exchange more, it's like departmentalist again, meaning like exchange is greater than other departments. So how do you see that playing out?
Okay. There is that risk of being departmentalist, but for example, the exchange departments are super working. I think from experience, the synergy comes naturally. Like for example, you need help with your campaigns, you go to your support department, com. When you need money, you go to ER. The synergy comes naturally. So if these exchange departments are fully operational, they will seek the involvement of the other departments. So at least you're all contributing to the exchange. So there. And I also mentioned in the bare minimum for each members, I want each member to know about exchange also, not just be I'm PM so I do PM stuff. I want each member to know sales, exchange, and PM. There.
Alright. You mentioned a lot. You mentioned again about the learning part, like the minimum membership knowledge, sales, exchange, and talent management. What will make them motivated to use these skills, though? I mean, you're gonna give them skills, but what will make them motivated to use these for the benefit of ISO? You also mentioned that there's low motivation in the LC right now to perform.
Okay. This is again where TL empowerment comes in. As long as we have that solid group of TLs who are willing to train their members on this and tell them about our goals all the time and tell them why it's important to achieve our goals, I think the members will find themselves getting better at sales, exchange, and PM. Basically because as long as the TLs, like I said, as long as the TLs delegate and not hoard all the work, when the members find themselves working already, they're gonna realize that they need sales. You can't be weak in front of your stakeholders. You have to be able to be knowledgeable all the time on ISEC, and you have to know exchange because that's our main operation. So when the TLs give more experiential learning to its members, that's when this will happen.
Neon.
Hi, Iris. You mentioned that part of your 3 minimum requirements for a member is talent management. Can you please elaborate what exactly you want?
Okay. Talent management, what I've come to realize, isn't really exclusive to the TM department. Talent management should be in each member and each person because it's all about motivating your peers, even motivating your TL sometimes. If you keep asking, what am I supposed to do? How do I do this? Your TL gets motivated actually. Because your TL sees, hey, this member cares. I should care also. Something like that. So I know it's in the big umbrella of TM, but what I really meant with that was the motivation part and the executing your plans and keeping track of your performance and your members' performances, because that's also how you make sure you're achieving your goals.
Thanks.
First of all, let's congratulate you for finishing your presentation. You presented a lot of nice stuff, more specifically LC engagement and synergy. But it's a given naman that you really need to engage your LC and have synergy among different departments. So then, what I think was lacking was how you're going to instill these two aspects. So my question is, exactly do you engage your LC more than what the current term is doing now? And how will you emphasize synergies among different departments? How do you plan to make synergies more concrete and more visible?
I think for LC engagement, it's gonna go back to the start of the term, even during recruitment, where we set expectations to the new members. That ISEC is about this and this. We expect you to do this kind of work. I think when you tell them throughout the term, we might ask you to pick up people from the airport or join at least one recruitment thing. I think they'll be willing to do it because from what I noticed last term, when the hype was still there after ACAMP, people were really willing to work on what they were asked to do. So if you get this concept to them early on, and when they experience it early on, it'll continue throughout the term. And for synergy, this is why I want lots of TLs and TLs to be holding a small group of members, maybe 3 or 4, because being an OC person, having lots of experience in the OC, I really found that it's really effective. It's an effective way to get your members engaged. And for the synergy, when the TLs have their members engaged, synergy will come along. Sorry.
I got
Hi.
I'm going to ask you about IGIPT and racing. So, what industries are you planning to have for TN racing, and how do you plan to position IGIP as a program that you would want to avail of to those industries that you are planning to?
For the industries, I haven't really thought about like which particular like education or the IT or something. But I'm gonna base it again on the market research and on the colleges we have, because from those colleges we'll get insight on what they need, and that's how we're gonna position ourselves. And also with those colleges come alumni who can also help us. Like right now, we have an alumni of Corum Group of companies helping us out. If we get more of these connections and we can take advantage of them all, I'm not really sure what industry it is yet, but we're gonna position ourselves based on the market research we gain from those insights from those people in those colleges.
Bench, then for one and two.
Hi Iris. I just have a concern regarding your allocation for the first semester. You mentioned that you want to allocate most of the members in exchange departments, mainly OGX and RCX. Seeing that your looking at your timeline, you have a lot of operations for ER, TN racing, you have COM for campaign, and you have TM for realignment and recruitment. Given that these functions also support exchange, how can you ensure that when you allocate most of the members in exchange, your support functions can actually function with their own initiatives and helping exchange at the same time?
Okay. I actually think you have a point with ER. They need people too. But the thing with ER is, as long as you have this group of sellers who are really focused on GIPT and racing, they can get the job done. For ICX, you're also allocating people to do racing as well. For COM, COM doesn't have its own initiatives yet, so they really will be relying on what happens with ICX and OGX. And for FLA, I think based on the term now, FLA is doing well being a small group. It's actually good for them because the responsibility isn't too scattered. So, what else did I miss? For TM with the realignment in the TL apps, that's actually gonna be TLs doing the work because it's just a lot of thinking, not a lot of legwork yet. So there.
For the judge of
I noticed in your presentation and also in your application that you lack an analysis of ISAQC. Could you provide one now?
Okay.
At least a SWOT analysis.